Hey, hi, hello. It has been quite a while since you've seen me here on this platform. Sorry about that, but you can expect to see a bit more of me starting this summer and hopefully indefinitely. But this video right here is one that I am very, very excited to make because I am announcing my Disability Pride Readathon that is going to span the entire month of July. This is a disability representation focused readathon prioritizing disabled authors and disabled voices and the disability experience as a whole, celebrating Disability Pride Month, which is every July in commemoration of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was signed into law in July of 1990, 35 years ago as of this year, which is a pretty big anniversary. 35 years of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which granted rights to disabled Americans, as well as 10 years since Disability Pride Month was officially made a thing in America. And with the way that disability rights are under attack in America right now, we need disability pride more than ever. Which is why I'm so excited to bring you the Disability Pride Readathon. The disability experience is in no way a monolith, which is why this challenge consists of 12 main prompts that encourage you to read across the entire spectrum of the disabled experience. And it also has like 4 additional prompts that are just like any book with disability representation because I wanted a bingo board. I wanted to be able to do a bingo with this challenge. I know you can do bingo boards with 12, but I don't think they look good. I think 16 looks way better, so that's what we're doing. This bingo board will culminate in a prize raffle that is open internationally. I also have 2 additional giveaways going on for US-based participants of the readathon and weekly reading sprints, and just so much fun and community surrounding people who love fantasy, romance, and disability representation across all genres. I'm gonna get to the specifics of those things in just a minute, I promise, but I do want to talk a little bit more about the challenge as a whole before I start talking about specifically the prompts and the giveaways and the reading sprints and all of that. This challenge is absolutely open to anyone everywhere, and you can participate fully on social media if you so choose, but to be an official part of a participant, to enter the giveaways and the raffle prize, to access the live streams, etc., you do have to be a member of my Bindery community, which is kind of like a Bookish version of Patreon. But don't worry, this readathon is run entirely through the free tier. I do actually have a $5 a month tier if you are looking to support me and you want more long-form content for me, some monthly newsletters rounding up all of the books coming out that month with disability representation that I know about, as well as just help supporting me towards potentially opening a publishing imprint. The coolest thing about Bindery is not only is it a Bookish Patreon, but it actually doubles as a traditional publishing house, and I, as a creator, if I manage to grow a big enough Bindery community of both free and paid subscribers, I am able to open my own publishing imprint in which I get to select books to be published, and of course, I would focus on disability representation and stories starring disabled main characters by disabled authors. But without further ado, let's get back into the readathon itself. The main part of this readathon is made up of this bingo board with 12 main prompts and 4 bonus prompts, and there's a lot that goes into this, but mainly the important things to know are that the books that you read must have a disabled main character, and I highly encourage you to seek out books by disabled authors, though it is not explicitly required in order to participate in this readathon, simply because I think that it is very difficult to know for sure whether an author is disabled. There are a million reasons that authors do not feel comfortable disclosing that, and I don't want to send people on a witch hunt, like hunting down whether or not something is by a disabled author. And I also want people to be able to read books that represent their specific experience with disability, and not all of those are going to have options written by authors with those own disabilities. For example, my major disability, which is called PANS, only has 1 book traditionally published with representation, and it's not by a disabled author. And like, I want people to be able to read whatever represents them if that's what they so choose, without having to like feel like they can't, because the only available options are not by disabled authors. And each book that you read can actually count towards 2 different prompts, and so in order to get a bingo across this board, you only need to read 2 different books. I wanted to make this as accessible as possible for as many readers, whatever reading speed you read at. And in that vein, absolutely any format of book that you read is totally acceptable for this challenge. Graphic novels, comics, novellas, even short stories, of course, audiobooks. I also had somebody ask if nonfiction books are acceptable or like what genres. You can read across any genre, including nonfiction. A lot of these prompts are written as if I am presuming you are reading fiction because that is what me and most of my audience does read, but you can adapt them as you see fit to fit a nonfiction book. So what exactly are these prompts? You can obviously see them on the screen, but I'm going to talk about them a little bit more in depth in this video as well. As you can see, the 4 corners are just any book, which means any book with a disabled main character, but as for the main prompts, our first one is a book with a neurodivergent main character. Everybody knows that that means autism or ADHD, but it also means dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia or dysgraphia, and so many others. If you're not sure if something counts as neurodivergence, just Google it, and if Google says yes, I say yes. That's gonna go for a lot of these prompts. If you're not sure if something counts or a disability counts under one of like the specific categories in this, just Google it, and if it says that it does, then that's good enough for me. You can also definitely message the Discord and ask, and I will get back to you super quick and let you know if that book counts somewhere if you're not sure. The second prompt is an indie book, which also means just a self-published book, anything that is not through a traditional publishing house. I'm not including books from small press in this prompt at this time. I do mean specifically self-published books, because like with any marginalized identity, it is a lot harder to get publishers to publish books with disability representation than it is just a straight white cis-abled perspective of a book, because publishers like what is safe and what people like, and that's so lame. And so a lot of authors who struggled to get published through the traditional route will go into indie, which is more accessible to them, and so I want to be able to support those authors as well through this challenge. Our third prompt is a book with physical disability representation. That is any disability that has a physical effect on your body. That can be the obvious ones like an amputee or a wheelchair user. It can also be chronic pain in your physical body. EDS is a big one. A lot of autoimmune disorders count for this. Anything that affects the physical systems of your body. Our fourth prompt is a book with an LGBTQ and disabled main character. Again, I would encourage you to pick up books by queer authors, but I'm not going to require it because I don't want witch hunts about author sexualities. But if you're able to find a book that is openly by a queer disabled author with a queer and disabled main character, I highly recommend choosing that one for this prompt. For prompt 5, we have a chronically bookish book club pick. So I run a book club through my Bindery community and the Discord associated with it. If you weren't aware, you should join us. It is focused on disability fiction in fantasy and romance genres. We alternate genres every single month. So currently we are reading Six of Crows, which is a fantasy, and next month we will be reading Love Like the Sun, which is romance, and then we'll go back to fantasy and then romance, etc., indefinitely forever. So I would encourage you for this challenge to read A Love Like the Sun with us in July, because that is what we are all reading, and we're all going to be talking about it in the Discord and in our wrap-up discussion. However, if that's simply not your vibe, if you're really not a romance reader, we do have fantasy options, and I have listed on the screen next to me every single book that we have read that you can pick anything off of this list. Our sixth prompt is sensory disability representation, and that is any disability that affects any one of your 5 senses. And so obviously this is going to be a deaf main character or a blind main character, but it also includes somebody who has like a touch disability. I don't know of any of those specifically off the top of my head, but taste and smell can also be affected. I know parosmia has been in like a significant uptick since COVID and long COVID. I don't specifically know of any books with that representation, but if you can find one, that would absolutely count for this challenge as well. For prompt 7, we have mental illness representation. This falls under the category of psychiatric disabilities. I do specifically want you to pick a book with mental illness representation and not just mental health representation, because not everything that is mental health is actually a mental illness or a psychiatric disability. For example, a book exploring grief is absolutely a book with mental health representation, but grief isn't actually a mental illness or a psychiatric disability. Something like OCD, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or anything else under that umbrella that is an actual like diagnosis. The character doesn't need to have a diagnosis, but the author does need to be like writing a book intending to represent a specific experience of a specific mental illness and not just generally dealing with the amorphous topic of mental health, if that makes sense. Absolutely highly recommend books generally, like to read in your life with mental health representation generally. There's nothing wrong with that. I think they're super important and amazing. That's just not what we're looking for in this specific prompt, in this specific challenge, if that makes sense. Hi, editing Kaylee popping in here. I somehow completely missed this prompt when I was filming this video. I don't have the time or energy to film, so instead you're getting a fun little graphic and a voiceover. Prompt 8 is autoimmune disorder representation. This is any chronic illness in which the immune system attacks healthy cells. It's definitely going to be one that you might have to Google. Does this count as an autoimmune disorder? Because it's not necessarily common knowledge. I'm pretty sure we're on prompt 8. I've lost count a little bit, so I really hope that's right. But this prompt is 2 or more disabled characters, especially disabled main characters or major disabled characters, if you can find it, but if it's just a major character and like a side character, that totally counts as well for this one. I just recounted and I was totally wrong on my count somewhere, unless I skipped a thing, but I don't think I did. I think I've talked about all these. I think we're now on prompt 10. I'm sorry if my numbers have been all messed up at this point, but this one is lived experience representation, also known as own voices representation. This means not only should this book be by a disabled author, but the author should have the specific disability that is being represented in this book. I've read a lot of books by disabled authors where they're talking about disability they don't actually technically have just because they want to write disability rep generally across their series. I know Chloe Lisa does this a lot. I love her books. I love all of her disability representation, but she has some books where the characters have something like ulcerative colitis and she doesn't actually have ulcerative colitis. She has autism and celiac, and so that wouldn't be own voices representation even though she's a disabled author. However, her books about autism representation or celiac disease are own voices as well as being by a disabled author. Prompt 11 is to get a book recommended to you in the Discord of my Bindery community. So there is actually a book recs channel where you can ask for any sort of recommendation that you want. If you're looking for something specific, if you're looking for something general, you can be as vague as just being like, you know, I'm really craving fantasy right now. Or you can be as specific as saying, I want a book with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome representation. Or you can say, I want a book with a very specific trope. Do you have any bodyguard romance recommendations? Absolutely anything you're thinking of, you can ask for a recommendation and us in the Discord will do our best to match you with something, and you can use it for this prompt right here. Just in general, a lot of this challenge is actually going to be run specifically on my Discord channel through my Bindery community. For example, getting these recommendations, we'll just have ongoing conversations as we read throughout the month. There's such an amazing group of people on there. I love it so much. And the giveaways are going to be held on that Discord as well, so I definitely recommend you check it out if you have a Discord account. And then finally, prompt 12, I don't have 12 fingers. I can't hold it up. Did I try to hold up 11 fingers? I honestly don't remember at this point. But prompt 12 is a book with a BIPOC and disabled main character. Specifically, this one does have to be by a BIPOC author as well. There are so many incredible disabled BIPOC authors out there, and they have so many incredible books across every genre. I know that you can find one. I have faith in you, and I can't wait to see what you read. So those 12 prompts plus the 4 like any book prompts make up our bingo board, and once you get a bingo or a blackout, you will then submit a picture of your completed bingo board. You can scribble in the names of the books onto the page. You can insert little like edited in photographs of the book covers onto the page, submit that image to the hashtag bingo channel on my Discord community, and you will automatically be entered into the raffle to win the grand prize of the bingo challenge, which is a 25 USD gift card to bookshop.org if you are in the UK or the US, or somewhere similar if you are somewhere else. I will talk to you about what's available in your country and if I am able to get you a gift card from there. And if all else fails, we will use Amazon because I know that works for pretty much everywhere in the world. But I'm hoping that I will be able to find something that is kind of comparable to bookshop.org or an indie bookstore or something other than Amazon, something that is actually promoting the book community. But ultimately, we'll figure it out no matter where you live. This is open internationally. Your first bingo is 1 entry into the raffle and blackout is a 2nd entry. So even if you get 2 or 3 bingos, that is still 1 entry until you get blackout for your 2nd entry. Just to be a little bit more fair to people who only get 1 bingo, I don't want them to be way at a disadvantage to people who read more, because again, like I said, I want this as accessible and equal to everyone as it can be. But I also think if you're going through the effort of reading 6 different books with disability representation, it is nice to have like, oh, here is a 2nd entry to just like up the stakes a little bit, you know? In addition to this international bingo raffle, I will be hosting 2 US-based giveaways. One will be a fantasy book and one will be romance themed. The first of which will be the fantasy giveaway, which will be open from July 1st through July 12th, and the winner will be picked on July 13th. This giveaway is specifically for This Vicious Grace by Emily Theed, which has Own Voices ADHD representation. It is Unwilling Chosen One and a bodyguard romance, and it is a romantasy with like low spice because it is on the NA-YA like cusp. And so it's got like a little bit of steam, but nothing full spice. The giveaway for this one is specifically just a regular paperback copy. The romance giveaway, on the other hand, which will run from July 13th through July 25th, the winner will be announced on July 26th, is for signed paperbacks of both Finding Gene Kelly and Dukes and Deeks by Tori Jean, another one of my absolute all-time favorites. These are indie romance books that both have Own Voices endometriosis representation, and Tori Jean writes some of the best disability and chronic illness representation that I have literally ever read. They're also just so fun and swoony and just a little bit spicy. Tori Jean's books are incredible. They're also on KU, so like you should check them out either way. But if you want to get your hands on a signed copy, this giveaway will be starting on July 13th, ending on July 25th. And the final main part of this readathon will of course be reading sprints that happen live so that we can all come together as a community, yap, and just have fun getting some reading done, locking in. This is always my favorite part of joining readathons, is reading sprints and the community that it fosters and how it helps me actually like sit down and read the books I want to be reading. And so I am super excited to be hosting these. These sprints will be hosted here on YouTube Live. However, the link will only be available to those in my Bindery community. They will be posted in the Discord channel, in the Reading Sprints channel, of course, as well as be sent out via email to all Bindery subscribers who are not in the Discord, because I want this to be as accessible for people who don't have Discord as well. I really hope that you will take the time to join us. Thank you so much. I feel so passionately about this readathon and disability representation in general, and I think that it needs to be more talked about and more promoted, especially during Disability Pride Month, but also all year round, because as I said earlier in this video, publishers are so reluctant to publish books featuring the marginalized experience by marginalized voices, and disability representation is no exception to that rule. But the more that we talk about it, the more that we read it, the more that we as a community get behind these stories and uplift these marginalized voices, the more that publishing sees that there is a demand for these voices. And as somebody whose life was genuinely changed when I read a book with disability representation for the first time and saw myself in a character and felt so much less alone and less isolated, because disability and being chronically ill, especially as a teenager, is such an isolating experience, that seeing these books that represent your life truly like change your life. and they're not being published because there's not a demand for them. So I want to make a demand, and I want to do it in a way that's fun and engaging and community building, and that is the entire idea behind the Disability Pride Readthon, and also my channel as a whole. So thank you for sticking around and listening to all of this. I hope to see you in the Discord and participating in the Disability Pride Readathon this year.